and welcome to another episode of the Who Dat Jedi podcast. This is episode 160, and oh my goodness, what a special episode it is. Not just because I have a breathing dog right here next to the microphone. Thank you, Sophie. But this is the first time that we're recording in the same room since the pandemic.
Dun, dun,
So,
dun.
since before the pandemic.
Well, we had the one where we were at Zoni Mash.
Right.
Right. That was the one.
NOLA Brewing. NOLA Brewing is when we interviewed. The Chewbacca's folks because I got distracted by the Donkey Kong machine.
The pandemic.
That was before the pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah, but we did our.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Anniversary show with the Star Wars
Mash. That's right. Yeah, that's right. So
that was the only exception, though.
But we are back around my dining room table with dogs all around, So yeah, so Fredo, Dave, welcome to my house. So
thanks for having us.
Yes,
and it's been a while since we recorded an episode too, because I've been traveling to the great state of Nebraska,
home of the College World Series.
Yeah. And
well,
I mean, it's
Did you see anybody you knew? Were you in Omaha at all?
No, but it's just been funny watching the LSU shot challenge, the Jello shot challenge, and you don't play with Louisiana folks and their Jello shots.
I did the math yesterday. LSU has bought more shots than all the other schools combined, like by a significant margin, and that was before game one of the final.
Well, apparently, the Raising Cane's owner bought like 6,000 of them or something. Then he bought like Raising Cane's for all the workers and stuff like that. We did have a former student of ours, Brittany and I. He messaged Brittany yesterday, I think, and he said he snuck into Rocco's. I don't know what sneaking into means. It must have been like hell to get into. I don't know. But he said, man, those LSU folks are, I don't know, I can't remember what the descriptor was, but
different breed.
Apparently they like to party, I think is what it was. So that has just been fun to watch.
Worlds colliding, cultures clashing. You're like, yeah, you have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah. And it's also kind of funny that in talking with our friends, when I was sending, just messages back to you guys, and I think people would be shocked. Dave, you've been to Nebraska, and obviously you're from Kansas. I'm going to tell everybody here, sorry to spoil things, but you get outside of New Orleans and you start driving in rural Louisiana, it's not too much different than rural Nebraska or rural Kansas. I mean, it's all corn, soybeans, or, here we got rice paddies. Yeah, it's just... I mean, like I said, it is what it is.
You know what's funny? The other day I was watching Smokey and the Bandit, which also came out the same year Star Wars came out.
That's an awesome movie.
Yeah, and what I was laughing at is I was watching all the roads and the highways and byways that Burt Reynolds and Jerry Reed and everybody else was running, and I'm like, aside from some signage and maybe a stoplight here or there, it's pretty much the same. Mm-hmm. Like if you were, the moment you get out of the cities, most of what's rural in the South, it's still the same. Like I've driven through those roads. It's like, it's the same vibe. And
unless you go to Colorado or like the Appalachians or, California, sorry, folks.
That's what America looks like.
America looks like America,
Yeah.
But anyway, it was, we went back for a wedding, and it was on the College World Series weekend, so finding a place to stay in Omaha was impossible. So but anyway, it is what it is. It was fun. But like I said, I find it funny that the Nebraska state motto, do you guys know what it is?
I don't know.
1, 2, 3, the heck with Colorado.
You're close. It's Nebraska. It's not for everyone. Hand to God, that is their state motto. But the funny thing was, I said you're not too far off, is that it was created by a firm from Colorado. So I mean, it's like it seems like somebody had a prank pulled on them. Anyway, no, Nebraska was fine. It was great to see family. It was
Kansas is so much more aspirational. It's to the stars through difficulty.
Man, they make you think on those long roads in Kansas.
They want you to stop and ponder.
Ad astra per aspera.
Of course, then my sister lives in Texas, and she said, West Texas, it's like you can see your dog run away for 3 days.
As someone who's been there on many an occasion, I've always said if you go from West Texas into New Mexico, you can totally understand why people see UFOs, because it's like you're on the dark side of the moon.
Yeah.
Completely different world.
So, today, I was going to say tonight, but it's like in the middle of the day, so it's really weird also. This is just messing with me, guys, because it's like I said, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're all in the same place, so this is really creepy. No, we're going to be talking about what a gray Jedi is. Has been a topic that's been kicked around on the internet, so we're going to talk about that. We got some news. First, then I also just want to talk, after we get through the trivia and news, I want to talk about what we've been watching, because a lot of things have been released recently, and I have some things I need to pitch, or at least one show I need to pitch, and I can't remember if I talked about it on the last time we recorded, so forgive my old man brain. But anyway, let's do some trivia here. All right, so Fredo, to you, what large beasts are seen grazing on Tatooine, not far from the parked Naboo Royal Starship? What large beasts are seen grazing on Tatooine, not far from the parked Naboo Royal Starship?
Can you graze on sand?
That's what I was wondering too.
It's a very sandy place. Those are dewbacks.
They are dewbacks.
That was the first shot. That remember, that was like the first or second shot of the first trailer for Phantom Menace. You got the first shot of the Gungans coming out of the swamp, and then it's like, there's a beginning, and next thing you know, it was the dewbacks next to the star, to the Naboo ship.
I was going to say banthas.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking too.
I still think it's banthas, but all right, Dave. All right, who ends up snacking on a free frog that lands in his soup in a Tatooine cafe? Who ends up snacking on a free frog that lands in his soup in a Tatooine cafe?
Wow. Well, Sabobo, right?
Yep, Sebulba.
Yeah, because he eventually eats it at the end of their little skirmish and dust up. Yes.
Yeah, Jar Jar originally went after it, and it got thrown that's why the fight broke out.
Yeah.
All right. To me, what duo are patrolling Hoth and placing sensors when a meteorite hits nearby? Oh, come on, really? Well, that would be Luke and Han. Yep. I'm sorry, Han Solo and Luke Skywalker. Okay. Ooh. Well, there we go. As opposed to Luke Jones and Han Stevenson. All right, cool. Well, Fredo, we got some news going on here.
Yeah, just kind of catching up on a couple of things that broke, around about. So the first thing that kind of came out is Star Wars Outlaws, which is the long-rumored game being developed by French video game developer Ubisoft, was revealed. They had a big old trailer. It's set to take place in the period between Empire and Jedi. And you're going to step into the role of Kay Vess, a clever scoundrel in the galactic underworld, as she's attempting one of the biggest heights the Outer Rim has ever seen, all in an effort to start a new life. And she's accompanied by a BX Commander droid and a little axolotl-looking critter named Nyx. So, supposed to be you jump ships. It's open world, so you'll be able to fly to your heart's content, jump from system to system. Some of the systems are new. Some of the systems are supposedly going to be places we've been to before. Set to be released in 2024 across all Xbox, PlayStation 5, and PC. So it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, there was some nice, both positive and negative reaction to the game, but the reality is it's like, I think after the success of Jedi Survivor, they're trying to do something else, single player, that people can just jump and go have fun with. So,
all right, again, explain to me. First of all, video game trailers don't typically show gameplay.
No, it's a story mode. It's kind of trying to sell you on the idea of what the story's going to be. So that's what you got.
Now, I understand that we're all of a certain vintage here. Yeah, I know, Sophie. But Do video game trailers get you excited for the game, or would you rather? Have you ever been hornswoggled by a video game trailer where it's like, oh, that looks like it's going to be a great video game, and then it's like you get to the gameplay and it just stinks?
It has happened. It has happened. I'm trying to think of any examples like recently. But no, actually, the good thing is, I mean, ideally, the first trailer, because it's still being developed, it's going to be all story or setting or mood. The second one, really, the one that gets closer to release, should show you, okay, this is how it's going to look. This is how you're going to run and shoot and what you're supposed to be doing. Of course, it is a trailer, so much like a movie trailer, it's showing you the best bits. It may not show you okay, you fired it up and this is what you're doing from moment to moment. And that's where open world games can be quite deceptive because you end up repeating a lot of the same things over and over and over again.
I want somebody to go back and do a video game trailer for like Pac-Man or Asteroids.
In a world.
With the cinematic, with CGI and everything.
Yeah, especially for Asteroids. Make it like make the trailer totally 3D and look like totally awesome, and then you get to the gameplay where it's like Pong.
You know what you could do is you could pull like footage from that movie Pixels, and then you could use that. I don't know, but like to answer your question too, I usually wait for the reviews. Like 99 times out of 100, I don't feel like I have to buy something first day. So
it's just funny to me that people are like, I don't know, and I'm not a huge gamer, so it's just the amount of excitement that I see. You know, it's like this trailer drops, and it's like you don't know what the game. They gave you the premise. It's like, I don't know.
But I also think in some ways, even just the idea of the premise, hey, you're not playing a Jedi, you're not playing a Sith. Because a lot of times everybody asks for that scoundrel underworld storyline, and so hey, kind of like Andor, this is that idea. You're not going to be playing one of the big heroes. Even Jedi Fallen Order or Jedi Survivor put you in the shoes of somebody wielding a lightsaber. So that's great. But this is something else.
Now you're going to get me all upset now because it's like, when did everybody get so ticked off at Jedi in their Star Wars? It's like somebody put too much salt in on the fries or something. It's it's more
like,
you know what I mean though?
Well,
it's
I
like
think that's part
like,
of the Gray Jedi discussion, probably, right?
But it's also it's like a friend, a coworker of mine just complained the other day. She got a Juan's Flying Burrito quesadilla, and she says it had too much bacon for her. Now,
those words have never been put together.
But that's the point. It's
no
like,
such thing.
Yeah, well, as I said, for some people, the Jedi are like too much. Too much Jedi is too much bacon.
My mom did that to us with jambalaya once. There's too much shrimp in this.
Oh, I thought she put bacon in the jambalaya, and I was like, what?
No, like too much shrimp in the jambalaya, and we were just like baffled. Like the shrimp is one of the best parts. It's so good. Like, what are you complaining about? But yeah, no, the bacon. Come on, people.
Anyway, I mean, so Star Wars Outlaws. I'm just like I said, that was my old man rant for the day. So.
And it's gonna be interesting to see how the reaction is. Like I said, we've already had the natural edgelord neckbeard anger at the fact that the lead protagonist of the game's a girl. It's like, geez, of course.
Yeah,
there we go. All right, all hell's gonna break loose now.
Oh no, yeah, girl.
A woman in charge of her own destiny in a Star Wars game?
The only thing worse than too many Jedi in your Star Wars is too many girls in your Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, God Lord.
So, speaking of too many Star Wars, Variety, this is from a couple of weeks ago, did say that there may be some shifting within Disney. Now, of course, we're still in the middle of the Writers Guild of America strike.
Yeah.
I believe the Screen Actors Guild, SAG-AFTRA, has voted to, or at least they're not completely voted to strike, but they have kind of like a early approval to strike, whereas the Directors Guild has a tentative deal with the movie studios. Anyway,
it's ongoing.
Yeah, preamble to say, Variety revealed a couple of weeks ago that Disney is maybe shifting the entirety of their movie slate, including several Star Wars movies. So they're reporting that they're adding a live-action Moana. They're delaying the next 3 Avatars. But the big deal for us is Disney may be adding a new Star Wars movie to 2026.
All right, so
we might get 2 that year.
Whichever the second one is to be released is going to make less money, and it's going to freak everybody out and say how Lucasfilm doesn't know what they're doing. So what does this make Solo 2 happen? Is that what it's going to be?
Well, and what I find interesting is because we know one of those is the one that the Rey Skywalker one, and I think that's the one that was originally scheduled to come out first in Christmas 2025 or maybe May 2026. But if they were hoping to maybe move that Mando movie to 2027, maybe they're thinking we can put that on Christmas 2026.
Let's just
is that
hope
too much Star Wars? Too much bacon in your quesadilla?
Well, I'm just saying, let's just hope that they figured out what went wrong with from Last Jedi to Solo. So I still contend that had nothing to do with the movie. It had everything to do with the timing and the fact they've never done it before and marketing. So if they can, and maybe if they can lay the groundwork now, that it's like, and like I said, just like I said, I just think people were just absolutely not expecting another Star Wars movie so close after another one. So.
I love the bacon quesadilla comment though, because like it is very true. This is what a lot of people said. I don't want my movies so close together. I want it to be an event, and I think that really did factor in, and like also people thought that the Solo movie was less essential. Like, who asked for this? I remember that comment over and over and over. But I would, movie studios tend to overreact to things that occur, and then they take one lesson away from what happened. If there's a failure, like Solo was financially, they might take one lesson away from that. I don't know what the one lesson would be in this case, though, because for a lot of people, it was don't release 2 Star Wars movies in the same year, I thought. And now they're talking about potentially doing it again. And this was like the reason we haven't had a Star Wars movie since, right?
Well, and I wonder if this is if they don't release the Filoni Mandoverse movie at the right time, then everything just kind of like too many dominoes get knocked over, or it just, it's like waiting for National Treasure 3 or something. I don't know. It might be one of those things where like going, this, it probably has everything to do with this, the strikes that are going on. That it's just like, okay,
Because the reality is it's not just impacting Star Wars. It impacts the entire Marvel slate. All that's thrown for a jumble. All their live-action Disney remakes, that's thrown out. So you end up in a dynamic where you need to have something to release on these big releases. So, summer, for Memorial Day, 4th of July, Christmas. But what's ready to go may end up being, okay, if the next Star Wars movie is ready to go, whereas the next Avatar movie is not ready for another 6 months, bring up the Star Wars movie, put out the Avatar movie back, and we'll figure it out later.
What they need to do. This was kind of like, you remember way back when we were all little kids, and they re-released, Star Wars: A New Hope
in theaters,
and it was like, and at the end of the movie or before the movie, maybe you saw the trailer for Empire Strikes Back. I think don't do a post-credit scene, don't do the Marvel thing, but actually put in like big bold letters, hey, everybody stick around at the end of this movie and we're going to show you an exclusive clip for the one that's coming out in 3 months or whatever it's going to be. I mean, slap them across the face with it. And I mean, yes, I know that it would be kind of, uncouth, kind of sloppy, but I think it might that's what you got to do.
They did that with Rogue One.
And they did that with Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Because those movies are coming out every Christmas. And I think after Fellowship of the Ring, they put a 6-minute trailer showing scenes from the Two Towers, and then for Two Towers they put a trailer. So, because they wanted
just
people,
make sure that you have the trailer ready to go for the next one, so that if it's the trailer that leads right into the movie and put in coming May of 2026, so that
Now you could do that with something like Lord of the Rings because you were working continuously, so you were generating new content. So even if you not necessarily have a snazzy trailer, you could cut some of the finished product and put it together, and hey, put some cool music, put it at the end of the movie, and excite the fans.
Like the Comic-Con.
That's why I never understood why they did not do that with Solo and The Last Jedi. I mean, that just was like, they waited until the Super Bowl, right? Or something.
And then nothing happened till
it's like
months later.
I mean, put that trailer. I mean, there's nothing more exciting than when you see I mean, how many people went to see some lame movie to see the Phantom Menace trailer,
Meet Joe
type
Black.
of deal?
We all did that.
But my point is, like, imagine you're going to see a Star Wars movie, and the trailer that leads right into that Star Wars movie is a trailer for a Star Wars movie. That would just make you more excited.
Marvel does that, and
Yeah.
they're experts at it. I mean, you go see Guardians of the Galaxy 3, there's a trailer for the Marvels.
Yeah.
You go see the Spider-Man, you get the trailer for Doctor Strange. They're pretty good about doing that because they know we not only do we want the audience to be happy with what we're showing them, but we want them to be excited for what's coming up next.
I think, like, too, these are just placeholders, right? And like you said, like, they're going to shift things based on what's ready, what's not ready, and they're going to move all this stuff around. Like, the Avatar thing is it's ready, so push Star Wars down the road further. So, like, I don't think people should, like, freak out over the fact that, like, right now there are 2 Star Wars movies scheduled to come out 6 months apart from each other. But I love this suggestion, and they did this with Rogue One, where they re-released Rogue One to get people excited for Andor. And I was like, I love Rogue One. I'm going to go see it. And they had all this extra stuff attached to it. They had the trailer for Andor. They had, like, behind-the-scenes interviews, and then they had a scene. Which was an extended scene of the scene that they'd previously released, and that was nice. It was a nice little bonus. It wouldn't have gotten me in the theater because, like, again, we're all busy adults with jobs and kids and things. But
my point is that Lucasfilm, because of Solo Last Jedi thing, they're like, it's bottom of the ninth, 2 out. And the person coming up to the plate is the guy that's grounded out, 4 times. Last 4 times at bat,
right.
And it's, so it's because it's because they fumbled that one thing. And I think admittedly they fumbled that. So it is like, just please, just make sure that people know this is going on so that we don't have to deal with, because Solo wasn't a bad movie. And so
It just was lost in the shuffle of people not being aware that it was coming.
Yeah, that was part of it. And part of it, too, was like the whole Avengers thing. People like, I have to go see the Avengers movie. Like, it's the culmination of all these other stories. And Solo, I guess I'll rent it or whatever. So it's seen as disposable in that way. But I think the next Star Wars movie, the first one, whatever it is, whenever it comes, that one kind of has to be an event movie. Because everyone's going to be thirsty for Star Wars at that point.
All right. So I'm sorry, taking us down a total. Which is the bigger event? Is it the Rey New Jedi Order movie, or is it the Mandoverse movie? That's the culmination of all this stuff that people have been watching for the last 4 years.
Well, they're going to have to figure that out.
I mean,
right?
but to you, I'm just asking you guys, which is the one that you would be like more? I mean,
for me, it's Rey.
So I mean,
I'd split the difference and say maybe the Mando one, but that's only because it's it's a known quantity. We know the characters.
I think it's the one that's easier to
it's
hit. It's the easier one to hit. It's it's the softball.
Yeah.
Because you've got people's attention, especially if they're watching Mandalorian. You throw Baby Yoda on a trailer, and I mean, that's just like dangling beef jerky in front of my dogs. It's just like so.
So would you put that one out first?
That's what I'm saying is that's the one that might be the big event. However, the one that me personally as a fan, the one I'm more interested in
the one you don't know about
is the Rey Skywalker one.
Yeah.
So I'm saying as personally, that would be the one I'm more excited about. But from a business standpoint and making sure, if you're talking about you want an event that's going to hit everybody, I think that the Mandoverse one might be the one to roll out first.
It's the easier one to sell because, like I said, it's something that people know and are aware of, and people have a vested interest in, whether it's Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett.
Well, that's the other thing. You just used the word. You use the word sell. You've already got Baby Yoda toys and Ahsoka toy, everything that you could repurpose into a different packaging. And anyway, so sorry, we've gone totally down a rabbit hole here. But
this could make a good topic actually for a whole show. But I think it's the Rey Skywalker's stuff because again, there's this gap. It's like people are developing, like they miss it. But there's nostalgia for it. It's like, oh, that's for the younger generation in particular. That's my Star Wars, and I haven't had it for a decade or whatever. By the time this movie finally comes out, and there's gonna be an eagerness to jump back into that. There's not gonna be the same thirst for the Mandoverse because it's like I've been watching that, and I appreciate having it on the big screen. This is gonna be awesome, but I don't think there's gonna be like the fervor. And then to the marketing side of it, you're not going to.
It all depends on what Ahsoka is.
Mm-hmm.
I think what Ahsoka and Mando season 4, if that comes out before 2026. I think it all depends on how they set that up.
And I do wonder how much groundwork Disney's going to be doing, Lucasfilm's going to be doing for that Rey movie. Because remember, the last image we got is Rise of Skywalker. That's it. So we have no idea what's going to be coming from that one. Are they going to be releasing books? Are they going to be putting, say, an animated show in the meantime? Because it's a, 15-year gap between that movie, Rise of Skywalker, and the next one. So how much work is Lucasfilm going to be looking to do in order to kind of lay the groundwork so that people are ready and excited? Or are they just going to be like, no, we're going to go cold. People just got to figure it out on their own. So...
All right. See, I took us down a rabbit hole because we've got beer in the middle of the afternoon. So, but this next story here, Brittany and I were just talking about that a couple of days ago. This is very interesting.
Mm-hmm. So, again, from Variety, I mean, obviously, strikes are happening, and well, it's not just strikes. It's interesting because, okay, so the story is San Diego Comic-Con is happening, I believe, next month, and already. Disney has said that they're not going to be a presence. So no Disney shows, no Lucasfilm, no Marvel, which is a tremendous loss for them. You know, which when you think about everything from Ahsoka, which we just spoke about, Loki season 2, the Marvels, Haunted Mansion, a lot of that stuff's not going to be there. Now, Disney has their own
D23.
Exactly, they have D23, their own event to promote all this stuff.
And Star Wars Celebration. Yeah.
But that's the other thing. Star Wars Celebration has happened, but if you're trying to get Ahsoka, I mean, in the eyes. Now, some studios have Netflix already pulled out. Warner Bros. Is kind of taking a wait-and-see approach. It's interesting because, on the one hand, San Diego Comic-Con particularly was known for these big events. Hall H for Marvel has been where every trailer, the stars come out, everybody's present, it becomes a big old event, and now... Well, it's not happening
that
anymore.
Might be that. I mean, so I'm sorry to eat up into this. So, how much of this is because of the Screen Actors Guild strike? I mean, so it's like, no, it's probably not a good idea for the whole cast of the Marvels to go out, to San Diego Comic-Con. Because it was funny because Britt said it's like, it's like, wow, yeah, Marvel, no Star Wars, no Disney, and I'm like, it's just like, what are they going to talk about? It's like, I don't know, maybe comic books. That made me wonder is if somebody is, and this is just conspiracy theorist Aaron, is somebody from San Diego Comic-Con, on the board saying we've lost our way, in a way that, or are they getting. I don't know.
I don't know that it's up to them.
Things get buried. The comic creators. I know my brother-in-law and sister-in-law. They go every year, and I always hear them talk about seeing like the panels for various TV shows and things like this. Or my brother-in-law goes for the comic books and for the art and stuff like that. So I don't know. Did they get just too big that it was a monster to?
I have a theory that the pandemic affected a lot of this, and like people skipped out during the pandemic. Maybe the con probably got canceled at one point, and then when it did come back, maybe some people didn't participate, and come 3 years later, oh, we don't really need to do that, and it's like, and it's just. Oh, we're going to save money and we're going to, pinch pennies a little bit on this particular aspect of our marketing budget, and we're just not going to participate because we don't see the return on it. And I think like that's part of, you see, E3 is the same thing right now. Like nobody is participating in E3 anymore, which is the electronics consumer show, and the big video game companies were always there, and they're not there anymore. They're just like, oh, we're not gonna do
their
it.
own thing.
Yeah,
Sony
Nintendo has their own thing that they do online. Sony has its own thing now. You know, it is what it is.
That's a very good. First of all, on a tangent, I totally dropped the ball. I had a whole joke ready to go of Dave, changing our return to office policy or something, and I totally dropped the ball on that. But
we're
anyway.
bucking the trend of Comic-Con here.
But I mean, that is a very good point. It's it's like in the recording industry. It's like if you have a good enough album, you really just need an Instagram account and a YouTube channel, and you can make some serious buzz. So yeah, they may not. And I also wonder, it's like Disney wants people to come to D23,
Yeah.
and so if I go to if half my, it's like, why would I go to San Diego? Why would I go to D23 if I'm going to Comic-Con and I'm seeing the same stuff? And so I wonder if there's some of that. It's and also on another tangent, did you know, like I said, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law go to Comic-Con. I didn't realize. So if you get tickets for Comic-Con, then if you want a hotel, you have to enter a lottery. You can't decide, I want to go to this hotel. You enter a lottery and they say, okay, here's the hotel. They're all comparably priced, but it's just to make it so that it's like, wow,
it's a big event. No.
That seems too much work for me.
And part of it is, San Diego Comic-Con had picked up a big size or a big chunk of the attention. But in the last decade or so, you've had WizardCon in New York, and you have a bunch of other conventions and events that happen across the country. So we got to remember that the actors turning up there, whether it's the guys from Marvel, the guys from Star Wars, or wherever, this is still part of their job. They're hired to be there and promote their movie. It's contracted work. It's not like they just decided, I'm just going to turn up and be at Comic-Con because I'm a fan, I want to be there.
Right, it's part of their gig.
It's part of the gig. So you got to have a contract in order to do that. And if you're a studio, and kind of like Dave said, it's maybe you don't need to do that for San Diego Comic-Con because that trailer is going to come out no matter what you say.
Well,
and the buzz, particularly when you consider stuff like Marvel or Star Wars, how much work do you really need to do to build buzz?
That was going to be my point. It's like, you don't need to go get a booth at the con to, as I always said when I was in the band, it was like, you need to spend money to get money,
Right.
So you did certain things or took certain gigs for less money so you could get the bigger gig and stuff like that. I mean, Marvel and Star Wars and Disney now is like, here's the new Disney movie. Your kids are going to want to go to it. All we need to do is put it on TV once. We need to buy one, TV spot.
It's like,
people are going to go.
Yeah, it's like when you think about somebody like Beyonce or Taylor Swift, how many interviews are they doing promoting their new album? It's like maybe 2 or 3, because that's all they need to do, because they already have the fan base. They already know that the moment it comes out, it's a certified #1 hit. So they don't really need to go out there and beat the streets and be at outside the record studios and the stores handing out free samples.
I do think it's going to change, though, and you're going to see people tend to be reactionary. They don't tend to be forward thinking with this stuff. I believe, because like right now should be the time they should be ramping it up, because the box office receipts for comic book fair are going down. Prestige films are going up. Comic book fair is going down. They're never going to like meet. I'm holding my hands up in the air. They're not going to meet. Like the comic book stuff is still going to be the big ticket stuff, but they're not seeing the ROI on that stuff that they typically have had leading into this year. And this year in particular, it looks rough. So I'm thinking, if that's a trend, a year from now, 2 years from now, people are going to be ramping up, I think, these cons more.
Yeah, like I said, it's interesting, though. This is my final parting shot here, though, is that because we've got a lot of Star Wars, for example, coming out in the next couple of years. And they are, again, wanting their Star Wars celebration. So
next year in Japan.
If somebody, again, you're talking about somebody who is going to, I've got enough money to either go to Comic-Con or to Star Wars Celebration. And that's the other thing. It is in Japan. You got to convince a lot of, American-centric Americans to go to Japan for, and I know more than Americans go to Star Wars Celebration. So, but I'm just being sarcastic here. But, you got to convince, that's a hell of a lot of travel. And so if I can go to San Diego and see all the Star Wars stuff that I want and see all the Star Wars people that I want and the Marvel stuff, and I don't have to go to Japan. I mean, so I think there's a lot of chess pieces here.
Well, and it's something kind of like you brought up before. I mean, you've gone to several of the celebrations and the conference and the cons, but what gets you going to one now may not necessarily be what used to get you going to one a decade ago.
And I was just going to say, okay, so real quick, around the horn, take money out of the factor, and somebody can babysit your kids.
Yeah.
Okay. Why'd you say to that, Fredo?
No, I'm just saying. They'd be like,
you have something to share. You have something to share.
Logistics,
Yeah,
pets.
No, I'm just thinking in terms of if somebody gave you free child care for a whole week. Is Comic-Con really where you're going?
Well, but okay, no. Okay, but here's my thing. I'm just going to say if take all those things off the table, would you go to San Diego Comic-Con, Dave?
I'd have to look at the lineup. I don't know.
Get the fence pole out of your butt.
I don't know if DC's gonna be. I don't know what's gonna be there. I honestly don't. I'd look at the lineup.
Let's say the lineup is great.
Okay, yeah, I'd go. Yeah.
I probably wouldn't. Not because I don't like them, but it's just I got like, standing in long lines.
That's
is not
thing.
the thing that excites me. Now,
That's
of course,
the thing. That's why I dig the
smaller ones.
The ones that we have in New Orleans here. The Fan Expo, or you guys went to Pensacon. I mean, yeah, you're seeing some more like B list, C list, but still, there's something, like I said, I've been to the Star Wars celebrations. I'll probably go to another one at some point. I'm not going to Japan. But it's so much standing and waiting in line. I mean, it's like worse than standing in line at Disney World. I mean,
at least at Disney World, you get the ride at the end. There's no guarantee you're going to get that ride come standing 3 hours for a hall pass. And you go, it's booked.
And now it's like if the only thing you wanted to see was this panel, now you have to enter in a lottery people are upset about that because you can't just, sleep overnight and camp out for your place in line, which that sounds even more miserable to me. I mean, I don't like camping. I don't want to, I don't want to sleep on concrete.
I would have done that 20 years ago. I wouldn't do that now.
So, anyway, but that's just kind of interesting. It'll be interesting to hear. I'll have to, maybe we'll have my brother-in-law on after they get back from San Diego Comic-Con and
get a report.
Let us know how it was different. So he's a big nerd as well. He has Thor's hammer. He's got.
Is he able to lift it though?
He's worthy. Yeah. So anyway, cool. All right. Well, before we get to the Gray Jedi stuff, I just wanted to go a quick round of the horn about what have you guys been watching? Because Secret Invasion, the first episode came out on Wednesday. And you've seen it, Dave, and I've seen it. Fredo hasn't.
Not yet.
Did you like it, Dave?
I liked it. Yeah.
I will say this is that it's kind of like I started thinking about this. It's like Kenobi.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's where I went immediately.
Kenobi and all of the Marvel Disney Plus shows feel like movies to me because you have some of the actors from the movies.
Yeah.
The Mandalorian, as good as it is, and I mean, I guess Andor is the only other one that felt like a movie to me because those people were from the movie, or that person was from the movie. So I think that's why I was like, man, I felt like Marvel's like keeps hitting this out of the park. And then it realized it was like, Well, because I feel like I'm in a movie because it's some of the same, even if they're only on screen for a couple minutes. Whereas the Star Wars stuff feels, air quote, made up, because it's not. I don't know. That's just, it was, but like I said, I liked Secret Invasion. It just seems really well done. So
my comparison point for Obi-Wan Kenobi was less that, but it's a good point. But more so the story and the characters, which I think an older statesman who has lost his fastball, or we're made to think has lost his fastball, and kind of seeing him get his swerve back, and can he? And that's where the drama lies. It's like, is he going to get his ability to, do the things that he does best back? And I think that's where we're headed with this, at least after one episode. I won't say anything further to spoil, but yeah.
Now, usually if you're going to spoil a Marvel show, the first episode is usually the best one to spoil because it's traditionally set up.
Yeah, it's all set up.
Yeah, it's not the payoff. That's what you don't want to spoil.
But anyway, I have to plug another one. I don't know if you guys have watched this. Disney Plus, Electric Mayhem.
I saw the first episode.
Yeah. Oh my God. Brittany and I, we binged that in a couple days. It seems like we flew through it. I mean, 10 episodes? 8 episodes, 9, whatever. And so Muppet Show was, and again, okay, folks, we're all, we're of a certain vintage. But the Muppet Show is the standard, and in the late 90s, they had Muppets Tonight, and that was good. It felt like it was at that standard. And then subsequent Muppet stuff, at least on the TV side of things, the movies have always been good. But the TV show, they since then the ones that they released one during the pandemic, just they've missed the mark. And Electric Mayhem was it was awesome. It was obviously designed. It seems like it was designed for Gen X. They captured and actually it's kind of funny because these characters, these Muppets who we only get a snippet of in the Muppet movie, and they're always the backup band. They did enough to flesh out the characters appropriately and without making one stand out over the other. I highly recommend it.
There are good cameos in there too for music fans.
Yes, yes. But I'd sit there find myself. I was rewatching a little bit of it, and I mean, the way they've Zoot, the saxophone player, never said anything. He was just always at the end of the Muppet Show theme. He his saxophone would make a different sound all the time. His character is just awesome. So I highly recommend Electric Mayhem. It's just a fun, easy watch. So.
For my end, let's see. So I did catch Across the Spider-Verse, which I know you'd call.
We haven't seen that yet.
I'm going to be seeing that Tuesday.
Okay, so no spoil. Oh, you haven't seen it yet?
Not yet.
Oh my God. Okay, I'll say nothing more than to say, expect a lot of anger at the end of the trailer. I took my nephew. He was in town with my sister-in-law at her 30th year high school reunion. So while they were going to she and my brother were going to that, I took my nephew to go see him, got him the Spider-Man across, Spider-Verse popcorn bucket and drink, and I think it's expensive.
Yep.
But anyway, we went and he had a blast. It was just really good. But then it's set up to be a part 2 of 3.
Yeah.
So be ready because his immediate reaction when it said to be continued was, "That's it?" And he wasn't the only one, which tells you how good of a story it is that everybody got wrapped up in it and they couldn't.
Fredo's nephew is flipping off the screen.
Oh yeah. Well, he's 5'4" now, so he gets his middle finger sticks up high in the sky. So
I feel like the second Pirates movie and the second Matrix movie were both like blatantly like that, where you get to the end of the movie and you're like, wait a minute, you're gonna end there,
right? And then they go, oh, it's not, next one's not coming out till next year, and it's like, now it's like, maybe not.
Well, that's how we all felt after Force Awakens. Let's admit it. It's
true. And then
so it's either one man's thing. One thing that ticks you off is another person's like, that's genius. So anyway.
The other thing kind of been watching while, I've been in the middle of my move is I went and caught up with Amazon did an adaptation of the Jack Reacher shows, books by Lee Child, which basically it's like if you remember the Dan Brown Da Vinci Code books, same idea, only, same model of writing, only instead it's a former military inspector trying to solve a crime. And all of a sudden, in the middle of all that, you got a conspiracy. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm comparing to Da Vinci Code. In the middle of that, the crooked cop turns out to be crooked, and you didn't see it coming. And, there's a shootout, and they've been trying, it's very disposable, very fun. It's just kind of like if you need to turn your brain off. The guy who did it plays the role who's completely, like, they had Tom Cruise doing that role for 2 movies. I mean, he's described as a 6'3", big, beefy military dude, and here's Tom Cruise doing the role. They got somebody to look more like him. So that's pretty much been it. It's just been trying to catch that and then trying to get as much sleep as possible. And that's been it.
Cool.
Dave, been watching anything?
Gone back and watched Daredevil, the series. If you haven't seen that, I'd recommend it, especially to you, Aaron, because you guys went and watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and you watched all the Marvel stuff, and I think like Daredevil's good. It's just as far as the Defenders shows go, I felt like
particularly the first season, the first season and a half, the first 2 seasons, they did a good job when it was just Daredevil dealing with
Kingpin.
Who he was, Kingpin, his powers, all his Catholic guilt. When they started trying to weave in all the Defenders hand stuff, setting up other stuff, it's the same that happened to all the Netflix shows. Like when it was just the hero dealing with their own internal trauma versus their villain, great.
Yeah.
Jessica Jones season 1, amazing because of that.
Right.
Luke Cage, similar in nature. Once they started trying to make it into a bigger shared universe, it loses some of its fastball.
Yeah. So, but like, I like this because we decided we were going to watch it because of the further tie-ins that are going to have with this character. They're bringing the character back into future shows and was in She-Hulk and
exactly.
et cetera. So, and the Spider-Man movie, the 3rd Spider-Man movie. So, like, we've been watching it. We liked it.
It's more adult. I'll just say that much. If you're accustomed to the Marvel PG-13 range, this is more adult.
Yeah.
Particularly season 2 when you bring in Frank Castle and the Punisher.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you get blood.
And we're also watching The Bear.
I heard it's a good show.
It's pretty good.
Of it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's about a chef who, like Michelin star type, high-end chef who his family dies and he has to go back to save the family restaurant, which is just a sandwich shop, Chicago, like Italian beef, Chicago type place. And so like he's having to figure out how to fit into this environment, which is kind of fish out of water stuff, but also like, am I going to try to elevate it? But in him wrestling with that, and it's a good show. I like it.
2 other things real quick. During my travels to Nebraska, I had over the last week or so rewatched Andor. Highly recommend it. Andor is much better the second time around if you haven't done this already. Anyway, number 2, Brittany and I watched Dungeons and Dragons last night.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, the movie.
That's such a good movie.
Yeah.
I was not expecting it. And Britt was like, "Hey, you want to watch it?" And I was like, "Sure." She was really excited to see it. It was funny. It was fun. It was heartwarming. It was good. So.
You tend to forget, particularly Chris Pine. Like everybody knows him from Star Trek or the Heartthrob movies, Wonder Woman, and it's like, do you ever see Smoking Aces, the Joe Carnahan movie where
it's been it forever? Yeah.
He's one of these really greasy looking dudes. He's actually a really good actor because he knows how to throw himself into these roles, and so him as the bard is just like he knew how to do that role just perfectly.
Okay, so to our topic,
Yes.
Gray Jedi. Dave,
Yes.
what in the educate our handful of listeners here. Educate the people. What the heck is a gray Jedi?
Right.
And why is it controversial?
Why is it controversial is the interesting part of this. But pulling from Wikipedia, so the unofficial source here, The term gray Jedi or gray had two meanings traditionally. First, it was used by Jedi and Sith to describe Force users who walked the line between light and dark sides of the Force without surrendering fully to the dark side. And second, it described Jedi who distanced themselves from the Jedi High Council and operated outside the structures of the Jedi Code. However, those who are considered to be true gray Jedi met both of those qualifications and did not belong to any particular Force tradition. And there are many examples, and it's not all legends, which is interesting to me. There's a long list of material, video games, books, comics, etc., where you see characters who are portrayed in this manner. Controversy, I think, comes in the fact that this has never been a thing that has been officially sanctioned by Lucasfilm. Their own story group has come out and said that I think the Grey Jedi are a contradiction in terms because the Jedi are not gray.
I'm going to stop you right there. So if I might interject, because otherwise I'll forget.
That's what the story group says.
Here's my problem with this, though, is that if we take Yoda says that a Jedi uses his powers for knowledge and defense, never for attack, then every Jedi from episode 3 and prior, at least from what we've seen on screen, then would fit the description of a gray Jedi, because they're using it for attack. They're full of hubris. They are the least Jedi things. Right. As you know, it's like that's what was striking in The Last Jedi, was that Luke was actually behaving as a Jedi. So I would actually argue that the definition that you gave there of a gray Jedi is the definition of a Jedi that we've seen from episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
I would say definitely from, say, Attack of the Clones onward, without a doubt. When you have, peaceful monks becoming generals of an army and leading battles and missions and campaigns, leading thousands of warriors across the galaxy to not just necessarily defend, but to take over systems and whatever. Yeah, it's a different way of looking at the Force at that point. You're no longer using it for knowledge and defense. Even if you think, it's the, look, we're going to conquer you to protect you, that way of thinking, which isn't really Jedi-ish. Whereas you're right, Luke in episode 8 saying, calling that mindset out of how Palpatine was able to use the Jedi's own hubris against them. That's more Jedi-ish.
I think what's fun about that sort of debate is it is a debate because you can fall on either side of the aisle. They really overstepped here, but there's this idea too of the ends justifying the means, and we have to get results. We have to protect people. This is the correct side to be on, and if our hands get a little dirty in the process, so be it. We're after a higher purpose.
Well, and I think which the Tales of the Jedi episode with Dooku and Qui-Gon represented that aspect really well. Just because it's showing the duality of, wait a minute, we get involved, there's going to be a battle. On the other hand, we don't get involved, people are going to die.
So before we get into why is this such a big thingamajig to talk about, I will say the real life. It seems to me the real life correlation here is the people who say that they're independents, that I am neither Democrat nor Republican, and I might have ideals on one side or the other, and those of us who are on one side might, or the other say, get the fence pole out of your butt. But it's, so I think that seems to me to be the real life equivalency here.
That's certainly one, yeah.
But like I said, it's like you you can find Democrats who are not, do not subscribe to all of the Democratic platform. You can find people who are registered Republicans, same thing. And again, I just come back to, it's like how many Jedi do we see in these movies who you can tell, act out of anger, act out of hubris, all these things. So why is this such a thing? Why are people peeing their pants over this online?
I think I think that a lot of people are married to the concept and enjoy it and are attracted to it. And I have my theories on why that is. But I also think that there are a lot of people who are like, well, no, this is strictly a strict definition of, the interpretation of the material that we have. No, gray Jedi is by definition not gray. They're not supposed to engage in force lightning or some of these other things that are considered to be dark. Never mind the fact that you go back to Return of the Jedi, and this is maybe, to me, that's the very first example of
Luke choking the Gamorrean guards.
Yeah. And this is where you see it, and ooh, and I understand where that comes from in the storytelling. You have to believe that he could turn for there to be dramatic tension in the final conflict, right? Oh, he might turn, and then he has the moment where he strikes down his father out of anger, and then he rejects it and says, "No, I won't do it." And so, I think this idea of fallen Jedi and this flirtation with the dark side is where this idea sort of stems from, which is well, could you walk a path, somewhere in the middle?
So let's throw out another real because when you brought this up, I've been thinking about a lot of these things. It's people who from a religious standpoint, let's just say and I might fall into I do fall into this category that I consider myself a Christian, but I was raised Catholic, but I'm not a part of Catholic Church. I was in the Lutheran Church. I'm not Lutheran. I went to an Episcopal church. I'm not Episcopalian. You know what I mean? So maybe am I a gray Christian? I don't know. It's because it's
because you're not affiliated.
So that's one thing. And there are people who would argue that no, Aaron, you are not a Christian because you are not in a church. You're not doing these things, and assign that to any faith. The other thing I've been thinking about though is that, and I'm hoping because in Skeleton Crew in the trailer that was shown at Celebration, Jude Law's character apparently uses the Force, and so everybody's like, "Oh, he's a Jedi," and that got me thinking. It's why is it you either are a Jedi or a Sith? Those are the only people who can use the Force, isn't it? Doesn't it stand to reason that there are people who are Force sensitive, who can use the Force, but are not a Jedi.
Right.
Or Sith, and so could that, could we start seeing heroes in a Star Wars movie that, Ahsoka has said, "I'm no Jedi."
Right. Ahsoka's the immediate.
And I still think that in her show, it's going to be her path to becoming a Jedi again, because she's talking with all the Jedi ghosts, in Rise of Skywalker. But, so anyway, but can we have those people who are like, yeah, I figured out that I can move things?
Particularly when you consider the way that the storyline goes from, say, prequels through Order 66. And we've got not just Ahsoka as the prime example, but characters like Ezra Miller.
Ezra Miller.
Yeah, no, Ezra Bridger. Yeah. That's the other thing I was watching. No, Ezra Bridger.
This podcast has now been canceled.
Exactly. Ezra Bridger, Cal Kestis. You have a number of characters who have come out of the woodwork now in the post prequel era.
These villains in the Ahsoka show apparently fall into this,
right? With they're not orange lightsabers rather than red.
Yeah. They're bounty hunters who used to be. But yeah, you could have a dynamic where you have characters who are Force sensitive, but not necessarily fall into the Jedi or Sith paradigm. I mean, like you said, is a Jedi just somebody who uses the Force for good? Or do you actually have to have been trained by a Jedi, gone to the Jedi Temple, gotten your Jedi certificate, been a Padawan, the whole rigmarole, in order to become, hey, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool, according to Horrell, Jedi.
And Ezra is actually a good example of this, because all through Rebels, I was thinking, he doesn't have this all wrong. It's being able to understand how to use your anger to be a little bit more powerful, but to be in control of that, to harness those emotions, not give into those emotions, but to harness those emotions. I think that's what Ezra was doing, for, when he got his hair cut and he was all of a sudden taller.
Part of what the Bendu was teaching
was
him.
it, part through fourth season or third season. Anyway,
Third.
I thought that was like, why not? It's like, why would the Jedi, and again, you can point to Obi-Wan was operating out of anger when he beat Darth Maul,
Luke when he beat Vader.
When he beat Vader.
Rey when she beat Kylo Ren.
Rey was using it all through. Yeah. I mean, every time she had a lightsaber,
she was screaming and hollering.
So anyway, I mean, like I said, I just, this is an interesting argument to me, and I can't believe the story group said, no, this isn't it. I mean, we saw Freddie Prinze Jr.'s thing. And like I said, I understand where he was coming from. By the way, everybody, look up online, Freddie Prinze's rant on Star Wars. And it's not a negative rant on Star Wars. It's kind of a rant on Star Wars fandom. And I get what he was saying. And that he was saying, this is coming from George Lucas. But if I was sitting across the table from George Lucas, I'd ask him the same thing. It's like, well, what about this? What about Luke, choking the Gamorrean guards? What about these things? These don't jive together. And I get your point, Dave, that it's like you needed that to show that Luke could be turned. But it's like you're saying there's not a gray Jedi, but is there the potential that there could be a gray Jedi? Or, we have, like I said, Ezra Bridger running around,
4 seasons of
working for good, but using dark side abilities.
I always think back to the teaching that Yoda was giving Luke in Empire when he starts says, how do you know the good path from the bad? And he says, look, no, the one's not more powerful than the other. One's quicker, easier. You can access that faster than the other. But you'll only know which is the good way or the bad way when you're at peace.
Yeah, but sometimes you need that, though. It's like you're in a pickle, and it's like, okay, I need to do meh.
Well, true, but the problem is, it's if you're not at peace, you're not going to think your consequences through. You're going to be just react, do. Hey,
which is Rey shooting down the fake Chewbacca transport.
Exactly, not realizing. Hey, exactly, and I think that's part of the reason why that's part of the reason why Yoda is a Jedi who teaches Jedi, because he understands the capacity and power that they have in order to affect the world around them. Now, why do the fans like it? Because it's fun to have all the calories and none of the guilt. It's fun to have all the toppings on your pizza, not have to worry how much you're going to pay for it. That's part of the lure. I mean, think of something like the Force Unleashed video games where you had Sam Witwer just running around, Force lightning and pushing, and he wasn't a Jedi. He wasn't a Jedi at all. He was the apprentice of Darth Vader, but he wasn't necessarily the bad guy.
Well, it's interesting, why, and I asked, I'll pose it again to Dave, why are people clamoring for this? But it seems to me, again, going back to my real life examples, and it seems like people want to have some sort of justification for, I can't get fully behind this religion or that religion. I can't get fully behind this political party or that political party. They want some justification that it's okay to be in the middle. But isn't the point of storytelling? I mean, nowhere does any of the fairy tales that we, grew up, or movies that we grew up, it was never like, yeah, walk the middle, kids. It was, no, see, good triumphs over evil because,
evil is dumb.
Evil is dumb. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I'm reversing.
It's the reverse of it. But, but why do you think, is that why people are clamoring for this? Or
yeah,
what?
I do think it goes deeper than, like you said, like just role playing and putting yourself in a position of like, oh, I love the Force Unleashed, mindset of being able to have my cake and eat it too. I think like, specifically in our country and in our society, I think about the fact that there's so many people that are deeply ensconced in Christianity, in quotes, and yet do not practice it in their day-to-day existence. And because it's like, okay, I'm not going to help the homeless guy on the side of the street.
Feed the poor.
Right. I am going to go make as much money as I possibly can today. There's a disconnect.
Yeah.
There's an absolute disconnect. And I think like that's where some of that comes from for a lot of people. And like, I'm not immune to it. I think like part of growing up is realizing that disconnect exists, and then having to determine for yourself, like, what am I going to do? Am I going to be the kind of person that just allows that, well, this is the way society is, and this is the way society functions, so I'm just going to go with the flow. I'm going to make as much, I'm going to get as much as I can, get mine, everybody else be danged, and then I'm going to go to church on Sunday and put something in the collection plate. And I'm good. And I'm good with myself, and I'm good with God. And I think a lot of people take that approach and run with it. Like, my mindset with that was never that. It was more, I can't be good all the time. I can't be bad all the time. Maybe I should be somewhere in the middle. But it wasn't so clearly defined as or structured as I'm going to church, I'm not helping the homeless guy. No, it was more, I'm going with the flow today. What feels right to me. There is a guy panhandling, asking me for something. You know what? I do have $2 in my pocket. I am going to give you $2 today because you know what? You wouldn't ask if you didn't need it. I don't know what you're using it for. I don't care. I'm going to help you out. And that's a conscious choice. I had to come to that point. It was easier to ignore. It was easier to put like systems in place and say, well, this system determines that I act in this way. And it's like, no. Like, the world is messy and flawed and weird. And so for me, like, the gray Jedi as a concept is kind of appealing because of that. It falls in the middle somewhere. When it's like, one of the examples cited on Wikipedia was Qui-Gon Jinn. And again, like, and that's because he didn't fall under the dogma of it, and was instead like, I'm going to live my life like Jesus Christ, basically. I'm going to go help people. That appeals to me. And again, like, that's where my faith falls. And so, like, on a really deep fundamental level, that's where I fall too. And so, like, Qui-Gon Jinn, like, he's one of my very favorite characters because of that aspect of his character. And I'm like, yes, you got it right. The Jedi don't have it right. You've got it right. And are you gray Jedi? Whatever we call you. And again, like, I think people get caught up on the semantics of it
names, right.
and the names. Gray Jedi couldn't possibly exist. And it's like, well, okay, well, if we're going to have that pedantic discussion, okay, we're going to have that pedantic discussion. I think that's where the online arguments all sort of center on that. But, like, the idea, the concept of people that fall in the middle.
And the other part of it is that, you know, George Lucas, he also wrote the line that only Sith deal in absolutes.
Yeah, that's wrong too.
So again, it's like, you know, that statement coming from a Jedi is the most ironic thing.
Yeah, it's
ever.
hilarious.
Because it's an absolute statement about absolutes. But I don't know, Fredo.
No, I was gonna say, because and it makes me wonder if that's part of what you're describing, Dave. Is part of what the journey of Ahsoka is going to be. Because the fact of the matter is if you start looking at it from the standpoint of, kind of like I said, you can only be a Jedi if you follow this certain way, well, then the number of Jedi that we met are few. The reality is more of them fall on the spectrum between, say, Ezra and Ahsoka and Yoda. So, but is Ahsoka going out into the galaxy, helping people, righting wrongs, protecting the innocent? Is that not more Jedi than somebody who's on the temple?
That's
just
my point.
Minds
though.
the library.
Mm-hmm.
That was my earlier point. Though, why does anybody have to be a Jedi?
I think
Why?
Okay.
I mean, again, I'm coming back to mine. You know, and I understand why people who are Catholic would argue why you have to be Catholic. You know, every religion would say why you have to be, but you know, there's a point where it's like, well, why? Because so getting into the Star Wars thing, it's like, so somebody who is force sensitive and can wield a lightsaber, why do they have to pay why do they have to pay the registration fee and be a Jedi, or why do they have to choose a team? It's like, I can still, fight for the things that you guys say that you hold dear, but I'm not part of your club, and I think it's a very real world thing.
It does make me wonder, though, because we've had examples of people who are very strong in the Force who didn't become a Jedi. Princess Leia, biggest example that we have. Somebody who, because of both her bloodline as well as the training, as well as everything that we see, she's strong in the Force. Not interested, but she's using her talents for other ways. So just because you're Force sensitive doesn't necessarily mean you pick up a lightsaber and you go start swinging it around. At the same time, though, doesn't necessarily, just because you're Force sensitive about a lightsaber doesn't necessarily mean you have to go Jedi or Sith. You can simply say, look, I'm going to help people and do my thing. That doesn't necessarily make you a quote-unquote great Jedi. It just makes you somebody who's the Force is helping people.
And people who are clamoring for a great Jedi, maybe this is my final question before we sign off on this, is do we want our movies right now, which are sometimes, let's face it, art is to try to, art has a purpose. It's generally, I create a movie, I create a song, I'm trying to get some sort of point across. In the times that we live in right now, is Gray Jedi really what we want to try to aspire to? Is that really what, you know what I mean? It's like, do we want people to, because we're never going, human beings are fallible. We're never going to attain, that mountaintop. But is it what we want to say is to say, just shoot for good enough? And I'm being very hyperbolic here, but you know what I mean? It's like, do you want your movies to say, aspire for just get by, or aspire to be, I don't know.
Well, there's a great deal of polarization in the country right now, and throughout the world. I think like a lot of people would say that, yeah, we probably could use more middle ground. We probably could use more people in the middle, because a lot of people do exist in their day-to-day lives in the middle somewhere. But like sort of taking politics out of it, I would fall under the umbrella of a middle ground sort of person in general. Again, like I try to do good. I try to help people. But I think one of the advantages to the polarization that we really haven't touched on, and that maybe people that like to live in the middle don't think about, is that, am I going to achieve anything? And again, there has to be some measure of compromise of one's values when one does that. But it's like, well, how am I going to get this resolution passed? Or how am I going to help the maximum amount of people that I'm trying to help? And it's like, well, you affiliate yourself with a larger group of people, a larger organization that has more sway and more power, and that's one of the ways that you achieve things.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, well, I was just saying, sometimes, I think it depends on how you frame the message. And if the message is one of, look, help out where you can, do as much good as you can, recognize that you don't necessarily have to, pick up a rifle and, lead the charge and overthrow the government and, change the world. Because sometimes those messages can be quite reactive and negative, but just the idea of, okay, can you help people? Can you stop and look, beyond labels, beyond terms, and just help people? And that's not necessarily a bad message. It's how it's framed.
See, and I agree with what both of you said. I think where I see it, though, is, because, sorry to be Anakin here, when he's, from my point of view, the Jedi are evil. The people who are both sides will say that they are trying to help people. Whereas what I'm saying here is, I think the concept of a gray Jedi, it's like people are trying to say, thou shalt not take a side, but choose a team, because each side has several different teams. And it's like, why can't I, be a mixture of these things? So I guess my biggest beef that I have is, like I said, the Lucasfilm story group saying, no, there is no such thing as a gray Jedi, and George Lucas saying there's no such thing as a gray Jedi, when they have portrayed those
for over 20 years now.
For over 40 years.
Well, yeah, since Return of the Jedi.
I mean,
so it's been around. The very idea, you're not going to always be 100% perfect, and nobody's perfect.
And I mean,
who you choose to associate yourself with, I mean, I'm sure that people will judge you based on that, and they will make, they will ascribe certain values to you. But I also feel like these groups exist for a reason. So many people think, like, I'm going to change the world and I'm going to fix things. I'm going to attack poverty. Great. Okay, I'm going to set up my own group. Wrong. There are 50 different groups that exist in this city alone dealing with poverty right now, today. And I think, like, that's where sometimes people miss the plot, where they think, oh, well, I want to do things my own way, And that's where, like, the gray Jedi mindset, for me, sort of breaks down a little bit. But again, that's your choice. We're individuals. We can kind of do what we want.
And yeah, I was just thinking when, to Aaron's point about the story group and George, I'm like, from Mara Jade, Kyle Katarn,
she doesn't exist.
Ahsoka, Ezra, they've had more, whether it's Legends or the new continuity, they've had more quote unquote great Jedi than actual Jedi.
Yeah.
That people know and follow and have, taken part in their journey. Because, we got a lot of Jedi during the Clone Wars, but that was one experience, and we're mostly following Ahsoka.
I love that we've had this discussion leading into Ahsoka. That was semi-intentional on my part. I think, like, what I would love to see is what I was just talking about too. Would be like, she finds out that there are other people out there that have the same.
And I think
things.
Actually I think the opposite is going to happen, because she said in Rebels, "I am no Jedi," and that was like, everybody's like, yeah, that was a great line, but I think you're going to hear her say in probably the final episode of the Ahsoka show saying, "I am a Jedi."
Right.
I think it's going to
like my master before me.
I think she is. I think it all kind of rhymes, Fredo. I think she is going to take that mantle again and disappoint a lot of people. Oh. What do you think? What do you think out there on in the Twitterverse and everything? What do you think about Grey Jedi? Let us know. Also, let us know what you've been watching. If there's any recommendations you have for us. And so this has been fun, talking around my dining room table, and the dog has been sleeping under the table the whole time. All three. They all conked out because we're too boring and yammering on. But I suppose we will say, who dat?
Who dat?
Who dat?
Everybody have a great, great week.
McConkey.